How's it going, everybody? Matt McNeil coming to you from the garage. And I just wanted to pop in, say happy Thanksgiving, and talk about this guy. This is going to be a Creepshow Creep. So this is what's going to go underneath all of the latex. As we've discussed before, I took an MRI scan of a skull and I modified it so that it is more like Raoul's skull from Creepshow. Specifically the teeth configuration, this extra like sort of sinus bone in the nose. I stretched this part out. I changed the cheekbones. You know, I moved things around so that it was more like the skull in the movie that Tom Savini used to make Raoul. And so what I've got going on over here is the skin. So this skin, what's underneath this clay, is basically that skull that you see over there. What I did do, though, is after sculpting this guy, I realized that there were a couple of tiny little additions and changes I wanted to make the skull to make him a little more Raoul-like, and as a result, I did that. So this guy's waiting to be molded, and what I've done here, if you can see past my mess, is not only did I do the face, but then I came here and I made a sort of a neck bib so that when I put this skin on that skull, I can wrap this latex skin around the stick that will attach to the stand that will make him stand up. So he will in effect have a neck that I can then blend into that rib cage and neck bone area right there. So you sort of see how all that kind of comes together, right? And all of this right now is modular. So this piece, this top piece, you could pull that off and then slide it down. And so I may make these so that if you wanted to orient his head in a specific way, you would be able to turn his head left or right just to display him. But we'll see how that comes off. You know, it's really going to depend on what the latex allows you to do and the hood and all of that stuff. But anyway, this is what will go onto the stand. And if you look up underneath here, it's got that same plug that I put on all of my stuff, which is the same as this right here. So you would be able effectively to take this, slide that on top of that, and, you know, display it with a creep stand, or, you know, even if you wanted to do something like that. Or I make these stands that are skeleton hands. So, you know, you could take this and display it based on this sort of mask stand system. So these guys are coming along. But what I really wanted to talk about is these are 3D printed with a bamboo Carbon X1. But any of those bamboo printers probably would be able to do this as long as the bed is the right size. I think the A1 may be too small. So this is 3D printed, and if you notice, when I stained him, you can see the 3D printer line. See that ringing? And when I say stain him, I mean that. I'm actually using this stuff here, Minwax furniture stain, wood stain, because it actually does a great job of creating sort of like these bone colors, and you just put it on there and wipe it off. But having done this, this is actually that same skull prior to the modifications. As you can see, there's some big differences. But this is that same skull. But I noticed that the finish on this guy was so much smoother and more even. No ringing. Look at this. Look how clean that is, right? So I was like, well, why is that? And the reason for that is the way that this guy was printed on the printer bed. And it's one of those things with 3D printing, sometimes you have to take into account, particularly if you have a round surface like a forehead, if you don't take it into account, you end up with that stuff right there, because since it prints in layers, this was actually printed in that orientation. So that printer head was coming in from the face side and finished up on that forehead and left all of these rings. It also left lots of sort of little rings and stuff on the teeth, on these cheekbones, where you see literally, let's see if I can get a focus here, literally none of that here, right? And the reason for it is this was printed like that. So the final, if there were to be any ringing, would be on that chin. But that chin, I guess, has so many sort of elevations that the ringing is minimal, if anything at all. Maybe you could see, I'm looking really hard and I don't see anything in the teeth, but it was printed face up like that, as opposed to like this. Oh my gosh, this camera's driving me crazy. As opposed to like this, right? It's printed like that. So I went back to the drawing board. I took that skull, that exact same model, and I re-sliced it because of the way that I had the model built, reoriented it in my 3D printer, and this is the result. And if you can see, I'm going to focus again. Smooth, 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 no ringing. So now I have a model here that's perfect for printing because it's not printing like that. Is it? Wait a minute. No, it's not printing like that. It's printing straight up and down. The reason I had to redo it is because I had to actually create that cut on the back of the head. It looks like I printed it this way, but I in fact printed it straight up and down, just like this. I'll put it beside Jerry because maybe we can find a focus. So this one came out great. And I also reoriented the jaw a little bit because when this stuff prints in a 3D printer, you have supports. And before, when I was printing this flat on the bed, I was ending up with this sort of like flat brim type artifacts here. So I lifted it up off of the bed so that there would be actual supports that I could then break off and sand and that good stuff, so that when you put these two pieces together, ta-da, we have another perfect Raoul. The other thing that I did is, if you notice on this guy, again, I'm always trying to change things. This guy, this neck piece is glued in, so I've hot glued that in. And on this one, I was like, why am I spending all this extra time printing extra pieces when I can just build it into the model? So I built this piece, which is basically a piece of that, but I lengthened it and attached it inside the thing. So now I'm not having to glue it. It's permanent. It's going to stay there forever. It's part of the actual one-piece printer piece. And so there you go. So this has been figured out, which is awesome. This I'm going to try to maybe make a mold this weekend. And then I'm going to take the two things. I'm going to put them together with that rib cage, some cloth and all that good stuff, and hair. And we will be off to the races on these Creepshow Creeps. Now, you might wonder, what's this dude doing on the back of the wall? Well, it occurred to me those Halloween skeletons are pretty great. What if I were to take this and marry it with that, and then have a 5-foot-tall Raoul, full-size dude? So anyway, that's going to be next. I'm going to, figure out this, get this all put together after I make the mold for that, all that good stuff. And yeah, so anyway, there you go. That's what I'm up to Friday after Thanksgiving. Yeah, we're making some progress. And a lot of people have actually asked me about this guy. And he's actually coming along. I figured this out. I think I might have talked about it. But one of the dilemmas, the big dilemma that I was having, was in regard to oh my gosh, this focus is driving me crazy. It was in regard to the splat, right? So you see that right there, right? And when you 3D print that out of regular filament material, it's very brittle, even resin. Oh, it's wanting to focus on that Jerry back there. He thinks that's a face. It's very brittle, and I was afraid that it would break. So what I've done here is I found a new material, TPU, which is flexible. So you can bend it. It's bendy. It's not crispy and brittle. So I feel like that this is something that I can put in a mailbox, in a box, you know what I mean, and stick it in the mail, and it would arrive unscathed. So the plan here is I'm going to print a bunch of this stuff, these sort of like splats, and orient them together and glue them together, and then probably cover them in permablood and some Gorilla Glue and you name it to make it glossy and gory and gross. But because I've gotten this far and sort of figured out this part, I do feel like that I'm now on a path that I could be ready to actually make a mold of this guy. So I'm going to do that very thing, and hopefully very shortly we'll have a mold for not only this guy, but Raoul over here, the Creep. So, yeah, even though I've been kind of MIA a little bit, I have been working on stuff, trying to figure stuff out, and very shortly it looks like I'm going to be doing 2 things at once. So, anyway, there you go. Hope everybody's having a good Thanksgiving, and I'll talk to you guys very soon.